Ruchem Aboim, B'Shem Hashem, B'Shem Irgin Shirtermas is Boston. I'd like to welcome everyone who came in person, and the Noshim and Ezras Noshim, and everyone who's joining on the phone. The thousands of people joining to the live stream and the telephone worldwide. Ruchem Aboim. I'd like to big a shekayach to Mr. and Mrs. Ellie Goldbaum for sponsoring tonight's shir. I'd like to big a shekayach to Rabbi Ruchem Winkler and Rabbi Yaman Winkler for sponsoring tonight's shir. Le'ilu Nishmas Aisha Edel Minka Bas Rabbi Ruchem Fischel Cholei HaSholem Yotzei Zayin Tammuz and Le'ilu Nishmas Michael Mordechai Olav HaSholem Ben Rabbi Ruchem Fischel Ner Yotzei Zvov Tammuz. We'd also like to give a shekayach to the Blumenkrantz and Sievert families for the support for tonight's shir. Le'ilu Nishmas Rav Avrom Shlomo Ben Rav Mordechai David Zatzal Yotzei Ches Tammuz. The same tourist but Sarah Chaim. That the source is sponsoring a share call Irgun Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Tonight we have the cover to have with us once again Rabbi Yakov Bender Shliter, Yeshiva Dachei Torah Far Rockaway, to speak on living life with zest. It's my cover to call on the Yeshiva for tonight's Rosh.
Thank you very much. I wanted to say, Rabbi Bald's father is probably listening. No, it was Rabbi Bald. Reb Shapsi Bald was from the early Talmidei Chachamim in America that dedicated their lives to teaching. I think my father, Reb Moshe Metzger, walked in. You know what Moshe Metzger is? The Minion Factories. He's right there. Minion Factories in America is his chus, his ein chus. I got a dash now. I can't talk about people now, but all right. Reb Shapsi Bald, my father, Zechron Levracha, was Reb Shapsi Bald Shatchan. You're here because of my father in a way. My sister knew your mother. You know the story. My sister was best friends with your mother. My father was the Manal, your father was the Rebbe over there, and they put together the Shidduch. So Baruch Hashem. So it's nice to be here. What do you call it? The zest for life, living with a zest for life, correct? It's good, okay. I'm going off on a tangent anyways right away, so it's okay. People think living life and enjoying life, it doesn't go together with Torah and Yiddishkeit. The only way you enjoy life is you have a good time. The Shabbos is, how do you have a good time? How does a person have really a good time? People think good times means going to a ball game, having a beer. A long time ago, there was a certain day camp that I know that they, when the first time that in Shea Stadium was the old New York Mets ballpark, Girsa the Yankees. So Shea Stadium had, for the first one in New York City, they made a kosher hot dog stand. It was a gewaldige yichus, a kosher hot dog stand. And there was much excitement, and at a certain day camp they went to the game. When they came back from the game, I met one of the kids who went to the game. So I said to the kid, "No, how was it?" He says, "Wonderful. I had such a geschmack, a hot dog at the game. It was so wonderful." I said, "I want to ask you a question. I heard from somebody else already. How long did you wait online for the hot dog?" He said, he looks at me, he saw he's already, almost already, he's in trouble already. He said, 45 minutes, he waited online for the hot dog. Now, I said, "Why did you go to the game?" I says, "You went to watch the game. You paid whatever, those days, $30, $40 a ticket, $20 a ticket, and you waited online." I said, "Tell me, how did the hot dog taste?" He says, "Rebbe, the truth, it was raw." So you stood online 45 minutes to eat a raw hot dog. It wasn't like, and you couldn't even watch the game. But I ate a hot dog. And he was a kid. He couldn't have a beer, but imagine if he was zeichet to have a beer also. And you could sit there in Shea Stadium with a beer in one hand and a hot dog in the other hand. You were zeicha. That's a good time. When you eat a hot dog, and you eat two hot dogs, and you throw up, what do you have out of it? So we associate a zest for life is to taste all Elam Haba. I'm waiting for next year, Mitzvah Hashem, when there's going to be for sure Pesach, no hotels and that. Those who have to go away have to go away. But I'm waiting in Mitzvah Hashem. One day it's going to be clear 100%. In Cairo, there's going to be a hotel in Mitzvah Hashem in Cairo. Then go back to Egypt to have to enjoy this dharm. Enjoying life and a zest for life does not mean chas v'shalom. It means that you can have a zest for life and realizing how lucky you are to be B'nai Torah. How lucky you are to be Erlich Yidden. If we live an Erlich life, nothing bothers you. Tonight is the shloshim of my brother, Zechron Levracha. My brother Michael was a shtickle tzaddik, maybe more than a shtickle tzaddik. I'm going to touch up how a person could take a zest for life and turn into the kulei ruchnius. I used to joke with him and tell him all the time, We were 1 year apart in age. He was born on Yud Tes Nissen, and I was born Chav Zayin Nissen the year before. Mamish, a year apart in age. I used to say, how's it shaykh that you and I came out of the same mother's womb? It's not shaykh. Look at you, look at me. I used to kibitz around. But you know what? Today's Tag Shleishim, he had a zest for life and being kind. There's a pasuk in this week's parsha. Aaron HaKohen is nifter, Parshas Chukas. The great Aaron HaKohen, the Reidev Shalom, the Isha Shalom is nifter. And then they got to travel to Eretz Yisrael. And Parshas Chukas, 38 years of the 40 years in the Midbar disappear. When we go into Parshas Chukas, they've only been in the Midbar 2 years. All of these terrible stories, Chazal Taka say, in the next 38 years, we had a lot of stories. In Baloischi, you had the Messianim, in Parshas Shlach, the Meraglim, in Parshas Kairach, you had Machlokes of Kairach. And then suddenly you have Chukas, and they're going into Eretz Yisrael. Aaron HaKohen is 123 years old. Aaron HaKohen is going to be Nifta. Right? And they're going into Eretz Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to take them in one day. 3 parshas ago, now after 40 years in the Midbar, they're going into Eretz Yisrael. And 38 years disappear. And they want to take a shortcut through Edom. Edom says, no way in the world, you're not going through Edom. Sure enough. So they have to go back. And up 7 or 8 masois backwards. And they got very nervous, Klal Yisrael. They said, Koi osu aveiseinu. Our fathers did the same thing. We had to go backwards. You're doing the same thing to us? You're doing the same thing to us. We're going backwards again. So 2 things happened. One was that the Ayev Shalom, the Raid of Shalom was Nifter, Aaron HaKohen. And the second thing happened, that they have to go backwards because Edom is not letting them go through the shortcut. They offered money to pay for the water, to pay for everything. Garnished. Nothing is going to happen. Vatik tsar nefesh am badorech. And the nefesh am became kotzar. The opposite of zest for life. They became kotzar. In Yiddish, they say shmol, eng, tight. They couldn't handle it. So Rashi says, what's pshat kotzar? Rashi looks for eitzes, what the words kotzar. One of those long Rashis that people like to skip. A lot of diktuk works in there. I want to stop for a minute and go backwards. In Parshat Va'era, in the very beginning of Parshat Va'era, it says over there that when Moshe Rabbeinu was sent by Kadosh Baruch Hu, the end of Shmos is very difficult because he goes to Parei, and Parei says, who are you? What are you doing? You don't belong here. Go away. He made it harder for Klal Yisrael. He told Klal Yisrael from now on, we're not giving you the straw anymore. That is very, very difficult. Shver matziv. And Moshe Rabbeinu finally goes in, V'lo Shamuel Moshe mikaitze ruach and avodah kasha. Listen to Moshe Rabbeinu. Kaitze ruach, shortness of breath, and avodah kasha. Shortness of breath to me is when I run up 5 flights of stairs, I'm short of breath. I can't handle it. So what should come first? So I once asked this to a Rebbe, and he said, it's a klutz kasha. No such thing in the Torah. Every word is measured. Every word is very clear. It should be really first avodah kasha. First you climb up the flight of stairs, and then comes the shortness of breath. Why is kaitze ruach first? So Rashi says short of breath, but I want to take a Rashi in this week's parsha and compare it now. I want to say pshat is the following, very, very pashut. When you are down on yourself, when you are kaitze ruach in spirit, when you're down, when you don't have the zest of life, then every avodah is kasha. I was speaking to a younger man who was very depressed, going through a hard time, parnasa. He told me that I'm so depressed and demoralized. My wife asked me last night to take out the trash. I couldn't do it. It was too hard a job for me. Taking out the garbage, we all do it, I hope. The husbands are sitting here, ladies are upstairs. I hope you all do it, and don't let your wives do it, right? My job, on the way here, my wife left the bag of garbage. I took it outside, Baruch Hashem. And I can't, it's not, I'm just a little hoarse, thank you, so I'll be all right. Thank you, I appreciate it. This is the Eved Nemon, he comes every week. How many years is he coming here? Bald? It's unbelievable. How many years are you doing this already? Huh? I know, with his right bald, how many years are you doing it already? 20-something years, he comes on time every time, really terrific. Yashik Chacham. Zikr Ram, if it's true what our board says, that thousands of people are watching, it's like a very chashiv. Okay, B'kitza. So kaitze ruach means when you're down, have a raya brura for the Rashi this week's parsha. Rashi says, what's vatik tsar? Rashi says, kol davar kasha neifal al adam, any hard thing that falls on a person. He can't handle it. So Rashi uses the word, his mind becomes very tight. And his heart gets verklept, verstemmt. He can't handle it, so Rashi. That's kotzar. Kotzar means that he can't handle it. There's too much work for him. That's vatiktzar, nefesh am badorech. The nefesh am became kotzar. Their mind closed up and their heart closed up. When that happens, you can't do anything. Actually, that's what happened over here. Aaron HaKohen was nifta. They got to go back with 7 stops. 8 stops maybe. Kotzar. Ein daita shalom, he says, rechava, there's no breath, B-R-E-A-D-T-H. He has no breath, B-R-E-A-D-T-H, to think. That's, but when you don't have a zest for life in a Yahadus way, everything is kaitzer ruach. You can't keep up. There's a fellow in the yeshiva that asked me for a raise recently. Fine, I don't mind giving raises. I hope we don't pay anybody enough money. We should pay more and more and more. Well, you can't. What could you do? I told him, but you have a problem. I told him, you're never going to be happy. No matter what raise you get, because you want more and more. And Torah and Yiddishkeit is the only thing that satisfies you. You could be happy. You could be really mitzvah-frieden. And I think that's what the apostle is teaching us. That takes an Evasham Badarach, if you do Torah. My brother, Zecharna Levracha, it's not shaykh. I once the Bacham in Yeshiva in Stanford, he was always impeccably dressed like this, perfect. Mamish, B'choil was Mamish. One day the Bacham are outside, they see him fixing a flat tire. Said, Rabbi, what are you doing with a flat tire? He said, the fellow asked me to help him fix it. So he's not shy, to ask somebody else to fix the flat tire. He fixed the flat tire. The Bacham stopped him, of course, didn't let him fix the flat tire. But everything was sweet, and he was the happiest person in the world. He has 2 handicapped children. Of his 7 kids, 2 of them are quite handicapped. And years ago, Rabbi Yakov was saying, stark, who has a child with Downs. Everybody knows Rabbi Yakov, and he makes a Shabbos every year for the parents of the Downs, not only Downs, of developmentally delayed kids. And he said, B'choil, please join us. B'choil said, on one condition. He shied away always from covet. I don't have to speak. It's fine. Of course, he spoke. They made him so crazy the whole Shabbos. He spoke, and he spoke so well that they asked him to say it over again at Shabbos so they could video the whole drasha. He must speak. But he said the one thing he said, I don't know, how can I speak? Because he says that people have issues with kids. He says, what do you mean issues? He says. Now, Michael wasn't smart enough to know when you have a child maybe who can't walk or can't think, it's not an issue. But he says, the Eibishter gave me these 2 kids. That's an issue? He was always besimcha. He and his wife, she should be gesund starker. It's a fegadina shustel. Always besimcha. She's a shustel maiden name. Always besimcha. How does it shaykh when you realize that you have to be a maimon, an erlich yid, and a wonderful Jew? There's no issues. There's no issues in life. There's no kotzer ruach. There's nothing. You just, it's a free in the mensch. One day at 6:30, they were originally, it's called Stanford today, even though they're in Muncie already 7 years. Like Roosevelt also was in Roosevelt. It's in Muncie, they call it Roosevelt still. So the kids, when they were still in Stanford, about 30 years ago, maybe less than that, about 30 years ago, someone walks into the yeshiva. The yeshiva had some Hebrew names on the outside. It's called Yeshiva Beis Binyamin. Somebody walks into the yeshiva, and Michael is in the hallway. I should call him Reb. If we call him, we played Monopoly together. He was a normal kid. We played Monopoly and checkers. Baruch Hashem, there was no electronic games in those days, so we had a chance of becoming normal. We played Monopoly together. Not too long. At the time, 8, 9 years old, he wasn't ready to play with me anymore, but he had to go do more important things with his life. The kid, so he walks in, this fellow, and he says, I see Hebrew words here. He says, I have a problem. He says, my car broke down. I need a tow truck. Problem was Shabbos 6:30 in the afternoon. So what do? So Michael takes his hand like this. Oh, I'm so sorry for you. He says, but probably that means you're thirsty. It was a summer day, like this time of the year. You're hungry, probably come. I'll take you into the kitchen. I'll give you something to drink. I'll give you something to eat. He says, sure, why not? He takes him into the kitchen and gives him all the shekasav. He gives him food and drinks. This 6:30 becomes already 7 o'clock. He says, all right, now, you know what, you do me tayva, we keep Shabbos here. You know what Shabbos is? He knew something, not much. He God was born in Israel, the fellow, didn't know too much. We keep Shabbos over here. Can I ask you for a favor, please? Wait 2 hours. Michael himself didn't make Havdalah till 12:30, 1 o'clock at night. What am I going to make Havdalah for? Bachram needed him. He's talked to them till the middle of the night. So he made Havdalah later. You have to have a wife. It's a tzaddikus for that, of course. So why don't you... And he took a bacher and he told the bacher, the minute this man comes, you get this guy a tow truck right away. He tells this person, would you mind waiting these 2 hours? He says, fine. What do you think Michael did? He sat down to learn with him. They learned for an hour. Then they went in together to Shalish Shuddis. And as soon as it was this man, they got him a tow truck. He went on his happy way. Next week, he's back in the yeshiva. Where is Reb Michael Bender? I want to learn with him. Within 3 months, he was a total and complete Baal Tshuva. He tasted Yahadus. Let me tell you, I just remember a great Shmuel Kamenetsky story. I'm going to tell you 2 of them now. Off my brother for a minute. Hear what it means, zest for life, what it means living a life. I once speaking to someone very close to me. Very, very close to me. I'm not going to say who. We're mishpacha sort of now. He comes from a total Freya background. So I once asked him, tell me something, Richie, how did you become from? I know your background, it's not a from background. How did you become from? So I'll tell you how. In the 1960s, maybe more you'll remember that. I said, the hippies, beads and chains and all the good Sachen. You next, you know? Bekitzer. So I was wearing my beads, my torn jeans, what I was wearing. I lived across the street from Philadelphia Yeshiva. And another young man, he says to me, there's a big holiday today in the school, let's go in there. He said, fine. One thing he knew, got to put on a yarmulke. That's all he knew. He takes the yarmulke from somewhere, he puts it on, this fellow Richie, and he goes into the yeshiva, and it's Simchas Torah. The Bachram are dancing. So they went into the back of the Beis Medrash. This is a story in the late 60s. When it's 63 Drexel Road. He goes into the back of the yeshiva, and they stand there and they watch. A Bacher came over to him, and the Bacher says to him, sir, would you like to hold the Torah? He says, me? I'm allowed to hold the Torah? Me? Yeah, you. The Torah belongs. This Bacher till today doesn't know who he is. When this Bacher goes to Elma Emes, the 120 year, they're going to say to him, you know what you did? Hear what he did. He says to him, yeah, the Torah belongs to you also. The Torah belongs to you. Here, hold the Torah. And he danced with him 15 minutes. Richie went back home and said, I tasted something. Richie turned his entire family from, he has wonderful grandchildren, he has only the best. He tasted from someone, this Bacha had a zest for life, a zest for Torah. I called Rav Shmuel the next day. Shmuel comes and says, we need him. I says, Rabbi, yes, Yankel Ben, Rabbi Yankiv, was macht ihr? I said, I didn't know Philadelphia is a Kiruv yeshiva, I told him. I said, I always thought Philadelphia, just sit and learn, no Kiruv. He starts laughing, of course. He says, Rabbi Yankiv, was macht ihr? What are you talking about? I said, I'll tell you the story. He had Givaldig Ano. A Bach in his yeshiva that sits and learns, but he has a zest for life. He took over there a person and gave him like a schmeck of what it means to be an Erlich Yid. The hot dog and the beer won't do it. I want to go weiter now. I told Rav Shmuel about 4 years ago, this story, 4.5 years ago. 2 years later, 2 years ago, I went to Chicago to Misad Kedushin Chesed just before COVID. All right, after, whatever. The Talmud Yeshiva, I went to Misad Kedushin after the chuppah is over. Okay, after the chuppah is over, I came down and the grandfather of the Bach, who I know from before. Your name, his name is Moshe Metzger. Isn't that an interesting story? Now I just ordered a story out. You know who he is? He lives in Beis. Moshe Metzger, that's his name. There are 2 Moshe Metzgers in the world. Bekitzer, Moshe Metzger, he says to me, he doesn't mind his name, he says, when were you in the Philadelphia Yeshiva? I just written one of my svarim that I write in English, right? And I like to write the introductions of what I went through. I wrote it by myself. I was learning Philadelphia Yeshiva. My father was suddenly nifter. I had to come back to New York. He says, were you there maybe in November 65? I said, bingo, exactly. I was there 4 weeks. So you're the Yaakov, he says to me. You're the Yaakov. I'm not the hero here, in a minute. You're the Yaakov. I said, I went to public school as a child. I was 16 years old. Somebody brought us, I had a little tradition in my family. It's an abyssal tradition I had in my family, abyssal. The kids, I think we went to Chabad day camp one summer for a week or so. He says, and when we came to the yeshiva, someone took us to visit Rav Shmuel. This is going back 1965. You hear? 1965. November 65. And Rav Shmuel shook hands, and he said, maybe you would like to have a partner to learn with you? This is what Rav Shmuel said to this fellow. So the fellow said, sure, why not? Once a week you'll come and learn? Yeah. And he gave me a boy, Yaakov, to learn with me. And Yaakov learned with me 3 weeks and disappeared. But he read my introductions, he figured it out. I wasn't the hero. Rav Shmuel was the hero. It's commonly done in yeshivas today. Bacham learn with public school kids. When I left Philadelphia, Shmuel gave me another charusa. A year later, Shmuel sent to Yeshiva University, Tzidkach Hanan. And a year later, and he has a emes ben Torah, and he has an emes mishpacha ben Torah. I called him Shmuel again. I said, again, you're doing kiruv. I said to him, look what you did. A bacha. That was Michael Bender. Michael Bender was a holy Jew. Michael Bender didn't have his hands below his waist, like this walked around. He walked around like this. Yet, my brother Shmuel Shalom told me last night, he got a phone call yesterday, people are being Menachem Avalas. The last person, Mr. Khan, just Menachem Aval me minutes ago, the Shleishim is ending tomorrow. So people are calling Menachem Aval. So Heshi Zupnik is a friend of my brother Shmuel Shalom. He tells me, I want to taste something. He took some Michael, how he washed himself, he kept his hands clean. His shmir was tremendous. I want to taste something. I was his roommate in Mizberish Gavai. I found this out last night. Michael Bender's granddaughter got married last night, so of course we sat in the side room. We couldn't be mishtatif in the chassan itself. And we were talking with each other, my sister, my brother, we were talking, what are you talking about? Of course, Michael. I was sitting there by the house, so Shalom tells me, my brother Shalom tells me, he does this night, so David, uncle, he tells me, actually something called him up, he says, he watched this, I want to tell you something, I was his roommate for 6 months. He came in later than us. After learning, we had to wash his hands for Kriya Shema. I used to watch him. He'd drop a drop of water straight to Kriya Shema. Because if he'll wake somebody else and he puts on the sink, don't wake somebody else, put on the sink. That's midais. That's midais. You can't. Yeah, you're going to hear all kinds of mifsim about him. And there are me. I'll tell you at the end. I won't tell you at the end because the mifsim on me is not the ikr. He was an erlich yid who every mitzvah was a simcha to him. One time, there was an ad in the Ated the last 10 or so years. I used to wonder who's putting in the ad. It says over there, when you get a delivery from the supermarket, from the grocery store, make sure you check all your groceries that they're all kosher lePesach. You got to be careful. I found out by the Shiva, one of Michel's kids told me, Michael Bender paid for the ad. Why? Because one year, about 11 or 12 years ago, 11 or 12 years ago, the grocery store delivered the groceries to them. Michael sees chametz stick of fish. The packages of fish. They made a mistake in the grocery store. He became a sugar for himself. He said, he was so makbid on what he took into his mouth. I almost ate chametz. What does the Eibishter want from me? Maybe. And he paid for an ad in the Ated every year till this year. Through this year, be careful. He lived his life kulei kedusha, because he was a giver and he loved to help people. There's a Ramban, murdik Ramban, Rabbi say. I don't know if people don't. You should speak at this Ramban. There's two places where it might be different girses, but the Ramban is the same Ramban. When Klal Yisrael and Baalei Yisrael are screaming out, they want meat. Chazal say HaKadosh Baruch Hu was upset because he spoke like, I can give much meat as I want, but the Maisa. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, don't worry about it. He says, Esfali Shivim Ish Mizikne Yisrael. Gather for me 70 people from Zikanim Yisrael, and they'll help you out. In fact, the Ramban, in other words, he's saying this, they're butchers, 70 Zikanim. What are they going to do? How are they going to bring meat? What's their shaykhs to meat? So the Ramban named, these were the Shaitrei B'nai Yisrael, Vayuku Shaitrei B'nai Yisrael. They absorbed the blows in Pasha Shmos when they took away the straw, and they made it hard for them. These Shaitrim, they took the klep. They loved to help people. Bring them in. Klal was in the midbar. They're having a hard time. Bring them in. The word he uses is l'shachech esa'am. The word l'shachech is in this expression, l'shachech, to calm them down. Calm them down. V'chamas hamelech shachacha. He calmed down. They're not going to bring meat. Not that their job is to bring butchers. Their job is not meat. You know what their job is? Calm them down. That was my brother, 100%. I go to a breakfast last Sunday. Now in Eibud, a week from this past Sunday. I was the guest speaker. I'm sitting there, it's a girl. The two older girls came over to me. I'll say their names now. They came over to me and said, we had the schus of sitting with the Shechina a week before your brother was nifter. So, what happened? This happened. What happened? I have a nephew. Maybe I'll get to the nephew later on or not. We'll see. His name is Pinchas Karo. A young man who lives in Lakewood. And we need shidduchim. So we spoke to Pinchas Karo, get us an appointment. He said, I'll get you an appointment with Michael Bender. And me and my friend are both sitting together over there by this breakfast. We said, we'll go. So Pinchas Karo called my brother. Michael said, I can't do it today. I'm sorry. I don't have time. I don't know about you. When I don't do something, I ask you for an appointment. I don't call him back. Why don't you call me again? A week and a half later, my brother calls me and goes, I couldn't do it that day, but I can still do it. He called him back. He never met him in his life. He said, we sat with him 1 hour and 45 minutes. And he spoke to us like a week before his nifta, a week and a half. Like nothing concerned him. He's the whole time was sitting with them, talking to them, mechazik them, 2 older girls, Yildu Shidduchim. They told me we're different people. We felt like we were sitting with the Shekhinah. For 1 hour and 45 minutes, I jumped out of my skin. People can't sit that long. And he sat, and he talked to them, and talked to them, and talked to them. Until today, they're so mechuzik, but it'll go on much longer than that. Mechazik people, the Hamas, Hamelech Shachacha. He calmed down, the Shachech Esam, to calm them down. That's our job, to listen. Do we listen to our wives, Rabbi Say? You're clapping upstairs. Do we listen to our wives when we come home after a long day and we had a rotten day at work and your wife wants to talk to you and you bring your phone to the table and you sit with your phone? We found out what our wives do. You know when we found out? COVID. Maybe she said this COVID. You want an embarrassing story about Yankel Bender? I think an embarrassing story. So the first few months of COVID, the yeshivas were closed. I prepared my shmuz in the kitchen. I kept my svarim there. My wife was cooking the other side of the kitchen. I was preparing my shmuz over there at my svarim. I'm sitting there and she's making Shabbos for who? For me. We're considered Zakanim already. We couldn't go anywhere. We had to be home. Pesach that year, the kids couldn't come. And she's preparing and she's in the middle of cutting up the soup. This is 3 years ago, Rabbi said, 2.5 years ago. So we're married, we and her, 50 years. Many more mitzvah, right? The kids, I said to her, I call him Minnows, I watched her, she's making challahs. Do you do this every week? She started laughing. My wife, I never saw her laugh so hard in my life. She says, we're married 48 years, and I asked her, do you do this every week? I never home. I took it back. I'm sorry. I apologize. That fell on roll 4. We found out. And we come home from work at night. All the wives want that we should listen to them. Bacham was sitting here. Okay, it's all right. One day you listen to your wife, Mr. Hashem. All they want is let's talk it out. I know what it's like when you're home once in a while. We got to be home at night. You got to diaper them or after them and cook and bake and laundry. We couldn't do those things. Come on, forget about it. One time I was taking care of my kids. My wife had to go somewhere at night. David Mesha Ramatzvi, the one was, they were 8, 6, 4, and 2. David 8, 6, 4, and 2, and the kids are home. And my wife didn't trust me, of course. My wife, she gave me a long list of things I got to take care of. Put this one in bed at this time to bed. This one got to eat this. Take kids, make one meal for everybody. Make different meals for everybody. And you give I couldn't get him into bed. No way in the world. I'm the big macho guy. I'm running a yeshiva, right? I couldn't. Finally, I said, guys, if you don't get into bed, I'm telling mommy on you. They ran into bed so fast. I said, Yankel, you're not embarrassed? I said it to myself. Our wives, day and night, we can't give them a little time at night. Young light today are wonderful. I see in Yeshiva Baruch Hashem in Lakewood, I hear Mamish, the young light give a lot of time to the mishpachas. It's wonderful. That's the way it should be. They want to hear, talk to them. Michael Bender's expertise, he had time, nothing stopped him. Friday night, the guy comes to the yeshiva. Strange bird, blood dementia, very big guy. He wasn't a white person. Came in Stanford, they barely had a minyan on the off Shabbosis. He lived there because of his shver, Simcha Shustel, he lived there. He lived there, but his kids had no friends. This guy comes in on Friday night, and he walks in, he put on one of his talasim Friday night with all kinds of colors, gold, green, blue, yellow, whatever. And he sat there, so they went over to him, they said to him, nicely, they're very able people there, who are you? You waiting for somebody? He says, yeah, I'm Rabbi Benta, I have to speak to him. After the dam, he was a 10th kind of a minyan that night. After the dam was over, Michael spoke to him for 2 hours. 2 hours on Friday night. If I come home and you come 2 hours late Friday night, not so pashit. But he has a wife, Fegadina, Shustel. She's a Shustel. The Simcha's a tochter. David's a sister. The Fabel's a sister. There's no day, there's no night by them. There's nothing. The kids knew they eat on their own. The kids ate on their own. He came up 2 hours talking to the guy. The guy needs me to talk to him. No problem. You know how Michael Shidduch happened? You know how Michael Shidduch happened? I stood over with Levaya. Incredible. He loved life. He loved Yiddishkeit. He loved Torah. You know how he slept every night? He sat by the table. He didn't sit with his back to the chair like this, Rabbi Isai. He sat at the end of the chair all night long and he learned. If he didn't sleep enough, fall into the table, he'd go into bed for 2 hours. His kids told me when we were young, the first 15 years, if anybody needed a bottle or something in the middle of the night, what goes on? You wake up a mother, you wake up a father, right? We never had to wake anybody up. We went into the dining room. My father was sitting and learning over there. This was him. How did the shidduch happen? My mother, Allah Shalom, who really, I think, Michael, my mother never, ever, you should know this, those rebbeim would think you have to give a patch. My mother never, ever, ever gave us a petula. My mother raised us, my father was nifta. Never, maybe I'd look better if she gave me a patch. My mother never, ever gave us a petula, nothing. She would say, Yankel, I'm disappointed in you. She may have said it 9 times a day. Yankel, I'm disappointed in you. That's it, never. We didn't know what fighting was in the house. We didn't know. When I tell this to my kids, it can't be Tati. Now it came out because Michael, he was the king. There's no fighting. Shmuel Shalom, my brother, told me, he had a Rebbe in Torah Vodaas in 5th grade, was talking to him about not fighting with siblings. He didn't know what the Rebbe was talking about. We mean people beat up their sisters? Because that was Michael, the king. No fighting ever. Never. My mother was like that. She never got upset at us. Never said a bad word. She was a widow, was a young age. Never. Michael was that, his way of chinuch. Never getting upset, never getting upset. So the kids, I get married, Baruch Hashem. And Michael said, I want to wait a few more years. He was 24, 25, whatever he was. My mother said to him, no, Michael, was for a shidduch was to give out. What kind of shidduch would you want? I was sitting there. I'm an Eid Riyah to the story, Eid Shmiyah to the story. What kind of shidduch would you want? Ma, was du willst? We spoke Yiddish. Was du willst? Like 100 years ago. Picked a girl like. Was for a shidduch was to give out. Ma, was du willst? Whatever you want. And 3rd time, finally, I said, all right, what kind of mishpacha would you like? Ma, whatever you want. She asked him again. We knew the shustel very well because my father was a Charuser of Shleimer, and Simcha learned there, an old relationship. So Michael says, okay, I'm mishpacha vi shustel. Mishpacha like shustel. I'm saying it on tape. Who knows? He says thousands of people. It's a true story. So I said, okay. My mother picks up the phone and she calls Reb David Shustel. Today's Rosh Shiva in Lakewood today. She says to Reb David, there's still a girl in the family? You know, one married Yachmil Garisha and helper in there. So Reb David says, yeah, Fegadina. My mother says, I have a good shidduch for you. Reb David says, fine. Reb David inquired, or went back to Reb Simcha, or his Rebbetzin. The Rebbetzin was a Matasdar for a daughter, Matasdar for his daughter. He says, and they came back, yes. They said yes. They were engaged in 2.5 weeks. Ritzayin Yirei of Yasa. He wants a family like Shustel. Ritzayin Yirei of Yasa. So Rebbe Yedber was Menachem Avalos. I can't tell you the Yedidishaf that we had with the Machtfeil family. I called Rebbe Yedber's mother Chava. The Mira Olam, first names, they had no family. The Shanghai crowd, it's glorified today. You know what it means when they came here, 400 brachim without fathers and mothers and wives they lost, and brothers and sisters. They had nobody. We was like, my father was an American. My father had no brothers and sisters. Our second cousins became our cousins. No one had any mishpacha. Rebbe Tzavach Feigel was us. Rebbe Yeber was best friends with my sister. Had little kids. I'm talking about, older, of course. Esther Moshe Epstein, Allah Shalom. Mama, you're close. So I told Rebbe Yeber the story, how the shidduch happened. Rebbe Yeber said to me, Reb David called? He called me. Reb David Shustel called me, he says, to ask tell me about B'chayel Ben. He says, I don't know what I'm learning. He says, I can't learning because he's 10 years older than me. But you know what, he says? I'll tell you that he was a Kaddish mi beten. As a child, he was a Kaddish. Reb David heard that. Finished. Shidduch gegangen. Was fra Shidduch willst du, was fra Mishpacha? Ritzayin Yirei of Yasa. He lived his entire life to be kind to people, to be nice to people. His modesty, I used to tell him, I can't describe to you how it's onav. I want to see you a kasha. Rabbi Yerucham's kasha. Today's day you got to say which Rabbi Yerucham. Rabbi Yerucham Olshan today is Shvarim in Lakewood. Rabbi Yerucham Levav is Mashiach and Meri Shiva. Take a look at the safe. It's a murder kasha. V'yish Moshe ba'loischa. Anav ma'id, the week of Michal's Pira. Anav ma'id b'kol adam asher pnei adama. V'yish Moshe, who wrote that pasuk, Rabbi Yisrael Yerucham? Who wrote that pasuk? None other than Moshe Rabbeinu. Achloikis in Gemara, who wrote the last 8 psukim? Vayam Hashem Moshe Eved Hashem, who wrote those 8 psukim? So one man Yom holds Yeshua wrote it, one Yom says Moshe, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him what to write, and Moshe Kaisiv B'dema, he was crying as he wrote it. But beyond 8 psukim, Kol HaTorah Kula. Now what happened when Moshe wrote that? Vish Moshe, Anav Ma'od, who told him to write that? He stayed in Anav. How can you stay in Anav, Rabbi Yakov? How can you stay in Anav? Yeah, because if you think you're nothing, it doesn't change. It doesn't change. Michael Bendit didn't know people came to him for brachas. But I'm nothing, he yelled. I'm nothing. People used to hear him saying, the zich is garnished. The zich in a private room. I mean, my Shavino didn't change because I told him what to write. I'm an Anav. I want to tell you Dvar Torah. It's a very good Dvar Torah. It's my own Dvar Torah. That's why I like it so much. And I called it B'chol, and I told him it's Dvar Torah. I hold it's mamish. I told it over to the Novominsker Rebbe just before he was nifta. And I used to tell him my Torah and Chumash, I'm not. This one he loved. I'm telling you, I want you to hear it. I told him, I knew B'chol was bothered that people thought he's a tzaddik. He was bothered about that. So I try to be Menachem Avil every single parent in Yeshiva Darchei Torah. I try. When it comes to women, I'll go up to the room. I'll stand by the door. I'll say, Makim Menachem. My secretary, Mrs. Gordon, she takes care where I go. I'm in Brooklyn. She sends me to Rabbi. And then one night, I have a free night. Rabbi says about 20 years ago, I can't tell you what it means, a free night, how wonderful the feeling is. But there are 2 women sitting Shiva in Flatbush, in this neighborhood. 2 women sitting Shiva. I can't make this up, Rabbi. Say, you'll hear in a minute. The whole day I'm thinking, should I go or not go? I'm going to stand by the door, be a room full of people, Chassidim, I don't know. And I'm going to stand by the door and turn around and go back. I have a free night. 2 days of going home, my wife will pass out. How come you coming home? But anyways, yeah, yeah, should I go, should I not go? I walk into I didn't know. I pulled out of Yeshiva, 17th Street. Left means going home. Right means going to Brooklyn. I arrive at the first house, Ocean Parkway, 8:30 at night. You'd say prime time. No, 8:30. I walk into the house. She's an only child, a woman. She stands up, Malaika Masa for me. I said, sit down, please. Nobody's there. So I sat down 2 rows back. And I always do this, by the way. I can't stand what goes on in Beis Oval. I have a thing for many years already. What my occupation for me was, I went somewhere far out of town to come over with somebody, and they were busy discussing the Mets. So I have a Kabbalah now. What I do is I go over and say, tell me about your father. Tell me about your mother. That's all. And I let come. You wouldn't believe the wonderful things you could hear about L'chayra Pashat Yidden. I grew up in America, in the 30s, without going to school and stayed from. I could write a book. What wonderful! I heard things I heard just from asking this question. Bekitza, so I said, tell me about your father. He's a Holocaust survivor. She told me stories for a half hour. A half hour she told me stories. Not one single person walked in. I finally said, Amaki Menachem Eschem, and I left. I left at 9 o'clock. I went to the second house in Flatbush, somewhere in the East 20s, 30s, around there somewhere. A little further down the avenues. And I walk in there, Oto Davar, the same thing. Nobody. One lady walked in between 9:15 and 9:45 to ask if she needs anything. I asked her about her father, the same things. And I said, Benda, you almost blew it. Mitzvah. 2 people had nobody the whole night, and you sat there with them, and you almost lost it because you were busy thinking, should I go, should I not go? Didn't stop to think what it would mean to them. You hear everybody say, when you make a decision, I don't care if you're a truck driver who thinks you're a nothing. When you go into a Shiva call, what it means that I didn't stop for a second. Hey, I'm the head of Darchei Torah. It's going to mean something if I walk in. It's going to mean something. Not for 1 second, because I'm very binuch. Who am I? And I saw this and now I had pshat. Chazal say a Talmud Chacham, really anybody, should have a shmini shebeshminis of gaiva. If gaiva is 64 parts, 1/8 of 1/8, the famous Goyen and Kantaiti, I'm not going into that right now. 160 for the gaiva. What for? Because Baruch Hu says, Ein ani v'hu yichayel nodur b'dira achas. I can't live in the same house as a Bal Gaiva. So why do you need even a 64th of Gaiva? And it hit me now. I says, Yankel Benders, push it. You're nothing. But for Yerim, you're something. That Gaiva you gotta have a little bit. A bissel Gaiva. It means something to somebody else. These two ladies, you made their night. That's what he did the Shmini Sheminis. I called up Bechil right away. I knew how much it bothered him. That people came to him. It's okay, Bechil. It's okay. It's all right. That's what I was thinking, Bechil. It's perfectly fine. For Yenim, he could help out somebody. That's why you have to have a little gaiva. Yeah, ich bin garnished. But for Yenim, Ishmael Anav Ma'id, he didn't change. Give Libin the Zelba Anav, give Zelba Anav. Didn't change one iota, he didn't change. Nor the Zelba Zach again and again and again and again. You know, when people came to him for brachas, I'm going to start off with a story Rabbi Brudley told me. Rabbi Brudley Michael me. I once asked if I could say it over. He said the guy doesn't mind. Rabbi Brudley told me he had a daughter that didn't have children for 3 years. He went over to Rabbeinu HaKadosh of Shul Birnbaum. We had in our midst of Shul Birnbaum, Rabbi say. I can't begin to tell you what it was having a Shul Birnbaum. Don Flatbush. He sat in his Winkler and Flatbush never saw such a levaya ever. So Eli Brudley told me he went over to Shul Birnbaum, beginning of El. He said, "If I have a bracha for my tochter, I need a bracha for my daughter, she should have a child." So Shul Birnbaum said, "You think it's so pashut giving a bracha?" I'm not thinking the kids went over that bracha. I got to find something makabel so the bracha should be chal. I got to do something for her. Mumble a word of Tilib. It's not so pashut. I can't give you a bracha right now. So Eli Brudley told me that year Yom Kippur. It's around 40 days later. Shul Birnbaum did not talk Yom Kippur. It's 40 years later. 40 days later. And we always used to go by, say, to the Rebbe. Rabbi Brudley told me he passed by, and if Shul Birnbaum said to him, like it's going to happen now. You know what that means? He found 5 minutes a day when he wasn't learning. Or something. When did he not learn Shul Birnbaum? And she had a baby less than a year later. He gave. They found my brother the notes now. They don't want to show it to everybody. Kabbalahs. When people came, he made Kabbalahs for people. By him, the greatest zest for life was to help somebody else. And if I can make a Kabbalah to help somebody out, we don't know how many days he even fasted, Rabbi Say, for himself. You know, he came to every single family simcha. Every simcha he came. Late. Never came on time. He's busy doing mitzvahs. Every family simcha. He never brought his own food. Never. People like sometimes Erlich Yidden bring their own food, right? He made sure the yashan there. That's it. I'm sure he didn't eat the meat, but yeah, he ate what he had to eat. He didn't bring his own food. I'm going to embarrass somebody. I know how he thought. I'm going to embarrass the host or the hostess. I'm going to embarrass them. Of course he ate. He's the guy I just told you before with the gefilte fish. That he went with sugar that they sent him in a sign. Afyanim. He lived in Outward Doyer, Rabbi say. He just was nifta. He grew up in the same America. He was a great athlete. In Bungalow Colony, White Lake, he used to win all the races. My parents used to say, you got to go play, B'chol. My parents were torn what to do with him. They saw something special. If my mother told him, B'chol, Heinz Benach used to get schlafen free tonight, you got to go sleep a little earlier. He'd write on I lost a half hour, you got to give me back the half hour sometimes. He kept a pad when he was 9 years old of the time, like Cheshbainis, that he's missing out on. But you had to play ball. My father told me I learned how to swim. Malkiel at Levi is sitting next to me, reminded me. Malkiel's father, Shneya, stayed in that bungalow colony for a few years. When Shneya took over, so when the Baron was nifter, Shneya couldn't come anymore. So Malkiel, the next summer, came to us. Best friends of Michael. 3 of them had birthdays together. Him and Malkiel, one other person. Malkiel should live and be well. Malkiel, Adam Chashem, Baba Bruni, the other one. Bekitza, they should both Chaim Tem, Maruchim, all of them. So he reminded me, you remember Michael, he says to me, Michael was to be called White Lake the fish. They called him the fish. He was the best swimmer in White Lake. It was a mitzvah to learn how to swim. He used to swim to the middle of White Lake. There was no White Lake. He used to swim out there, no problem. The fish, Malkiel reminded me, they called him the fish. There was a bacher, Malkiel told me also, someone mentioned in the Hesped, there was a bacher in the Bech was mamish, plain English, he was a Meshugana. He used to bother Michael as a bacher yet. And Michael gave him thousands of hours of time. Thousands of hours. And I said, Michael, the guy is not well. And we were right. Michael said, I'm sorry, he needs time. The week of Michel's Sheva Brachas, he came to Michel. Michel was staying by Sheva Brachas that made him. And we told him, stop, it's not going to help. Every time we spoke to him, it gets worse. And he didn't care. Thousands of hours from Alkil told me, this Bacha told me, when I lived in Eretz Yisrael, he says to me, this is what Alkil says to me, he came to my house, he made us crazy. So I went to Rav Shach. I said, Rav Shach, what should I do? Alkil's an El Chayid. Rav Shach said, he heard the stories, don't let him into the house. And Michel, he wouldn't hear Shilas because I can give somebody time. The Shachech Esa'am, to calm somebody down. Time. Incredible level. I'm going to cut down a little bit, but the level of was not Shaykh, Rabbi say. I'm just picking you out now a little bit. It was a Gibeon. I heard where there was a Rav in Chicago, Rav Chaim Tzvi Hollander. Chashav Rav, he moved to Eretz Yisrael. He was nifter a year ago. Chaim Tzvi Hollander of Chicago, I tells the Rav. He wants to know what the Gemara. The Gemara says in Sukkot of Membeis, you know what the Gemara says? The Gemara says that certain things happen only when other things happen. For example, when is a child allowed to put on film? When he's able to watch them in Torah. When does a child start doing that, taking a little of an esrog? You don't want him damaging that. When can he start? When he knows how to do the nanuim. When he knows how to do the shaking. Then it says, when is a child allowed to go into the geiren, the silos where he used to give the meisters and trumas? When he starts duchening, Director of Chaim Tzvi Hollander, when he starts duchening, yeah, what's the shaykhus? To watch tefillin b'Torah, we understand, right? When you're able to watch it b'Torah, you can put on film. We understand nanuim. That when you're able to do nanuim, we check. What's the shaykhus? He's a murder Gebert, he says. Probably I know. I heard from Osband, the Riverdale Rosh Yeshiva. It's a murder Gebert, he says. He says the Kohen Kol Yomov, last week's parsha, is a nemer. He takes trumas, maisvis, as a nemer. When you duchen, is ben a geber. You give. Before you start taking, learn how to give. When you're duchen and you know what it means to bench somebody else, then you can start taking. My brother never took in his life. One time, the diaspora band, Goldstein, his son, Rabbi Yakov Goldstein, my Michael needed a favor from him. Michael called him up. Talmud, I think, in Stanford. He called him up once. He said, I need a favor from you. I'm coming over to you, sir. He said, Rebbe, no, I'm coming to you. He said, no, I need a favor from you. I'm coming to you. Of course, the Talmud went out, and the Talmud came to my brother Michel's house. Michel sits down with him, and he takes down, he had on the wall, my Zayda, Zechron Levracha, Rav Ram Bender, who outlived my father by a number of years, had a letter from the Chafetz Chaim, personal letter from him. Michel got that letter, and it's hanging in his house. He took down the frame. He starts showing it. To this fellow. I forgot his name. Elio, I think his name is Elio Goldstein, I think. He starts showing it to him. And he spends 20 minutes explaining the letter and everything else. He says, Rebbe, I don't understand. You called me for something. Why are you showing me the letter? Why are you showing me the letter? You came here as a favor for me. I got to do a favor back for you. He couldn't just take the favor that he came. So I want you to have enough of this letter. Now I can talk to you. With a cheshbon. So my sister calls me up. My sister calls me up one day in the office, Sister Blummy. Dein Mama. We called my sister Blummy, Simcha David's mother, and my brother, twins, except they were 6 years apart. 6.5 years apart. But they were twins, same madregas. You can go to for brachas in Lakewood. Not a pashta person. So she calls me up one day in the office. We're very close. And then I couldn't talk to her for 4 days. Yankel, this time you're not hanging up. I said, Blummy, it's hard for me now. Yankel, that's it. I want to tell you a story. She says to me 6 months ago, you know what a maifis is going to happen now? For one reason. When you're an ovid and you love life, you have a zest to do mitzvahs, then it's pashat to maifsim. It's saying you're Ev Yasa. He says, 6 months ago, I got a phone call from a Bible in Lakewood. And the Bible in Lakewood tells me, I need your brother's phone number in Stanford. This is 28 years ago, the story. So my sister Blumey says, 203-327-5475. She ready to hang up. So the woman says to my sister, to Blumey, don't you want to know why I need the number? Don't you want to know why? It's not my business. You asked me for the number, I'm going to give you the number, that's all. I want to tell you why. I'll tell you why. She was just diagnosed with Rahman al-Islam. And she's also pregnant. And the doctor said we must operate immediately because when a woman is pregnant, the disease races very badly. Very, very badly. We know what to do. So I called up. She has my sister. She had a sister in Lakewood. She asked the sister to go into Rav Shach. Her husband should go into Rav Shach 28 years ago. And he went into Rav Shach and he told him the story. Rav Shach asked her, he said, America? Was kommt zu mir? There's a younger man in America, Michael Bender. Rav Shach? We have two svaras. One is we think maybe Michael used to write letters because they Israel. So maybe Rav Shach saw some of the letters that we have are incredible. Or it could be because Rav Shach's Rebbetzin was best friends with my mother's mother, Lifsha. My mother went to Israel, was a widow just a short while. When the 6 Day War came along, we sent my mother and this sister to Israel, Blumey to Israel together. And they went into Rav Shach. Rav Shach opened the door. And she said, Ich heiss Basha Epstein von Otvatsk. Ooh, Lifsha's Tochter. Rav Shach knew that his Rebbetzin is best friends with my mother's mother. He took 2 chairs from the kitchen, Rav Shach, and he brought them in. His wife was already amputated one leg, sick woman. He put down the 2 chairs, Rav Shach, and one for my mother, one for my sister. And he said, she was so happy to see my mother. My grandmother was killed by Nazis in Machshvan. My grandfather, everybody here knows what we're talking about already. Bekitza, she was so happy. Rav Shach sat down at the edge of the bed, and he participated in discussion. They schmoozed about the old days for 45 minutes. One possibility, and maybe that's it, because he said also, this lady the story's about, we kept it quiet all the years. But this lady who the story happened to, this lady was diagnosed, came to me, my sister said Shiva in Lakewood, and she walked in front of 100 people, and she was Megala, her name in the whole story. And she said that Rav Shach also said, the fact that he's B'choel Bender is a bracha, but he's also Reb David Bender's son, my father's son. That alone goes asking for a bracha. Okay, I'm telling you about my father. That's why I need his phone number, she says. 6 months later, she called back Blumey. So I want to tell you what happened. I called your brother 6 months ago. And he asked me for all the medical information. B'choel knew doctors. He helped people day and night. We used to talk all the time about psychologists for Bachim. He says he asked all kinds of questions. And then he said, give me a few hours. I think it was more than the medical question. I think he wanted to daven. We called him back 2 hours later. She said 6 months later, I got the call from my sister, 4:30, 4:15. I went over to Michael a few weeks before it was Nifta. I knew the story a few times. I asked him, Michael, is it true, the story? He's never going to say it's true. He didn't say no. That's the answer. Now this lady came in Mizragal after he was Nifta. He says, Bekitza, he says, calls back 2 hours later, don't worry. Don't worry. No operations. She just called back Blumey at 4:15. I got the call at 4:30. I want to tell you what happened. Michael said such and such. I had a baby a few days ago. Healthy. The hospital said, you must come in for your MRI now. Clean, nothing there. Zero. So 4 years ago, a couple comes to me when I was sitting Shiva in Muncie with my siblings, and a couple from Farak, and now Yeshiva walked in. I had forgotten the story. They came to see me in Yeshiva. They want an appointment with Reb David Feinstein. Can I get them an appointment? It's hard then to get Reb David at a particular time. I said, you know what? What's your problem? She says she was diagnosed. Same exact story. I said, I have a brother in Stanford. He's in Muncie now. I'm not going to go into the details. Same story. He asked the medical information. They bring me this girl all the time to say hello to this daughter. They want a healthy daughter. Nothing happened to this woman. No operations, no nothing. When you love Yiddishkeit, and you love everything about Yiddishkeit, and you love being an Erlich Yid, you don't need the hot dog that I started out with and the beer. They'll never satisfy yourself. That's not a real zest for life. Zest for life is mamish only like that. I have another long story. A similar mice, he promised someone get out of a coma. Rabbi say anybody. It's in this door he lived. Anybody. I say it to the Baruch Yeshiva, and I spoke about it 2 days. I got up for Shiva. Anybody. It means becoming a holy Jew. It means deciding, I want a zest for life. You know what life really is? Imagine the music band that greeted him when he came up there. Imagine. What went up over there? What went on? An hour verbatim. Imagine what it means a person like that comes up to Shemayim and they're jumping for him. The simcha. My parents walked. My parents saw him. You could imagine. I could imagine Reb Simcha Shustel and his Rebbitzin. It's hard for me to talk. I don't want to make a hesped now. It's hard not to choke up. But Reb Simcha and his Rebbitzin were Mekabel Panim B'choil. When my father and mother were Mekabel Panim, imagine the Kabbalah's Panim we had over there b'Shemayim. He didn't enjoy life. He enjoyed life more than all of us, Rabbi say. He loved life. He loved being an Erlich Yid. He loved being an Erlich Yid. That's the only way to love life, enjoy life. We should all be Gebent, Rabbi say. We should learn from him and learn what life is all about. We should all have Riches Yam B'Shanim. All Mikal B'Shich B'Nei B'Shich Tzil Meir B'Meinu Amen V'Amen.
Shem Shir Torah, like to give a big Ashikoyach to Rav Bender Shlita for a very inspiring drasha. Rabbi say another thing you could do with Zest, the sponsor is Shir of Irgun Shir Torah. Call Irgun Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com to have this great schus. I'd like to give a big Ashikoyach to Mr. and Mrs. Eli Goldbaum for sponsoring tonight's share. I'd like to give a big Ashikoyach to Rabbi Rucham and his son Rabbi Yamin Winkler, sponsoring tonight's Sheli Nishma Saisha Edel Minka Bas Rabbi Rucham official. Last Shalom, Yetzai was today, Zayin Tammuz, Nishmas B'chil Modcha, Olav Shalom, Ben Rabbi Rucham official, Amish, Yetzai was Vov Tammuz. And also like to give Yashikach to the Blumenkrantz and Sivert families for the support for tonight's Sheli Nishmas Rav Avrom Shloima, Ben Ramodcha David, Zatzal. Yetzai is tonight Ches Tammuz. Tenish V'sem Tzurus B'tzor HaChaim. Yashikach to everyone for coming. Chananya ben Akash Yoima, Rotzak HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakis Es Yisrael, L'Fikir Hibbel Torah Mitzvah Shenem Al L'nei Chofes and Mantzidka Yagdul Torah V'Yader. Kaddish, Kaddish D'Rabbanan.